Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. This is the part 2 of the topic that I started last week under the heading Study Skills. Today we are going to see what is extensive reading, what is intensive reading, and what is speed reading. The sequence of slides will be that the term reading will be at a glance. There will be mention of components of reading, then process of reading. Then I will tell you what are the types of reading, extensive and intensive. And then what is speed reading? What are the best speed reading techniques? And finally, the conclusion of this part. Dear students, as you know that most of the time in our classrooms, you are given different tasks based on the reading of your textbooks. So it means that reading is that skill in language skills, in those 4 language skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing. Out of these 4 language skills, most of the times what you require is reading. But this reading is usually taken for granted. Do we really understand what we read? That is another debate. Okay. But before I get into further explanation of this term, let's look at this word, this term, briefly. Okay. As you can see, that reading is a multifaceted process. Multifaceted means that it is not just a simple process, or it does not have only one angle. It is a dynamic process. Earlier it was considered that reading is a passive skill, or you just it is in comparison to writing and speaking. It is not that active skill. But you see that the recent studies have told us, it has revealed that reading process is quite a complex process. This is the process in which brain keeps on it remains engaged in different functions or in different tasks that the brain does. Apparently it seems as if the reader is only looking at the text in front of him or her, but in real, there are so many things going on during that process, which we will discuss now. Now it is a process which involves word recognition. Word recognition means that it basically it has to look at what are those words, letters, and their sounds, and of course their meaning. So it starts from word recognition, individual words, and within a word, individual letters. Just like if there is a word, reading in itself, the word reading. So the first step will be to recognize what are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters. What are they? So it will be READING. So if you recognize this, the second part will be that if you know their sound of individual words, individual letters, if you say that R and EA together, it will be E, then D, that ing. So if together you know the sounds of these individual letters, and then you know the meaning of the word reading, so this is called word recognition process. So it starts from there. Okay, so this is the first step. Then of course fluency means that without any interruption, if one can recognize the words, recognize the sounds, knows the meaning, and keeps on going ahead without any break in the thought or in the process of reading, then it means that person is fluent in reading, that person is confident in reading. All right. As we know that comprehension or understanding the whole text or the whole reading material is the ultimate goal of every reading, even if it starts from just a one word, or it goes on to the thesis or or you can say, or the book, or in anything that you read. Comprehension, it is the final goal of all reading, because it is the communication between reader and the writer. Just like the speaker and the listener, they are integral. Their role is very significant in communication, in that verbal communication or that oral communication. In the same way, in the written communication, this communication, this connection between the reader and the writer, it holds a lot of importance. And finally, reading also involves motivation. Motivation means that when all these three things, word recognition, fluency, and comprehension, is achieved, there is a constant encouragement within the reader for exploring more, for explaining his or her ideas in a better way. So that person is encouraged. That is why they say that the actually the world leaders, anybody who is a best leader must have been a best reader, because it equips the person with expressions, with so much of the knowledge that one gains, and this is where it sits in the mind of that person, and that gives him or her the encouragement, the motivation to move on. And so it equips you with confidence and with the self assurance and self reliance, you see. So it means that reading, it is not just a simple process, or it is not just something which is for time being, or it is temporary. It has its far reaching effects or impact. And finally, if we look at the simplest definition of meaning, simplest one, so it is that reading is making meaning from print, making meaning from print. Again, comprehension. That is the ultimate goal of reading. So I have listed over here the 5 components of reading, or 5 important parts of reading. Since I have just given you a bit of the idea about the sounds of those individual letters, so what we technically call these sounds, it is called phonemes. If you can see that here, the first part of reading is that if one identifies the phonemic or the individual sounds, actually these are called phonemes. Phonemes, there's a difference between phonics and phonemes. That phonemes are going to be, these are the sounds in our mind. For example, I can just make it clear by telling you something, that the sound t, the sound t, or sound m, or the sound n, or the sound r, it when we talk about the languages, uh, these sounds exist almost in all languages, like m, t, r, v, f. So all these sounds, they exist in all languages. um, so when uh, these are in the mind, I mean that when you have the sound somewhere up in the mind, that will be called phonemes. Phonemes are individual sounds in mind. Okay. So components of reading, the first component is that a reader should be able to identify, or should be able to know what are those phonemes. So this is how the reading, it gets this process then gets complete. So the first thing is that one should know what are the phonemes, or these individual sounds. Well, now what is phonics? Phonics is, let me continue with the same example of those sounds m, v, r, t in any language. But uh, when one uh, when one writes these sounds, or when these sounds come in front of us through speaking or through writing, every language has a different symbol for that sound. In English language, m, t, v sounds, we know that how they are written. See, but they are not written in the same way in Chinese, in Japanese, in Urdu, in French, in Korean. So many, whatever languages in the world are, the sound would be same in the mind. M sound exists in almost all languages, but how one writes it, how what symbols are used, they will be different in different languages. So phonics, which is the study of the relationships between letters and the sounds. So if the letter, for example, this, even the word letter, so this L letter, it has L sound. This E letter, it has a sound or a sound. So these double T, now its sound is T, and again the same. So there's the connection between the individual letters as well as the individual sounds, how they are written, how these sounds, what symbols are used. It is called phonics. So next is, again the word has come, that fluency. Now when one recognizes these two things, the third component is that there comes now fluency. Fluency is the ability to read text quickly, accurately, means without any mistake, and with proper expression. Now if one knows this, then it means that you are at number 3 of this, among these 5 components of reading. Vocabulary. We know that the written language is nothing but the storehouse of words. Now these words, these expressions, they are called vocabulary. So vocabulary basically means all the words in any language, be it English, Urdu, or any language that you have. And one must know words to communicate effectively and comprehend when reading. So meaning of the words, meaning of those expressions, if one knows that, then it means that one is at the again at the advanced step of all these 5. And finally it comes again, because comprehension, reading and comprehension, you cannot skip comprehension. There is a key role that comprehension has to play, and there is an integral connection, the bond between these two, reading and comprehension. See, so comprehension means understanding what one is reading. Now this is wrong. This should be is. One is reading. Now this is the ultimate goal of all reading activity. Again, you see, I told you earlier. Let's have a quick look at the process of reading. Like reading, I told you that it is not a passive skill. This is a skill which, why we call it a skill? Skill means that something out of practice, practice, practice. When you become master of that, then it means that you have acquired that skill. Simply looking at the words, simply pronouncing them, simply identifying their sounds, it is not called just reading. Reading is a complete package. That's why it is not a passive skill. It is an active process where brain, as well as mind. What's the difference between brain and mind? Do you know that? Right? So science people know that brain is actually the name of the organ, which is a physical thing. And mind means that something abstract, that what goes on in that brain, what thoughts are there, they are related with mind. So mind is something which we can't see, but brain we can draw brain, how it looks like. Okay, so there are some areas in brain which are related with reading. There is anatomy of brain, which sometimes later I will tell you that what is that anatomy of brain. Okay, so this process of reading, it has everything to do with the the thought processes which are going on in the mind when one reads something in front of that person. So the first thing is going to be before reading, what happens in before reading stage, and what happens during reading stage, and what happens after reading stage. So if I give you an instance, that if you are given your course book and a topic on any, even if I give you a topic communication skills, I give you notes and I ask you to read these notes. So before even reading these notes, you would definitely have a look at the title. You might look at the writer if there is any. You might look at the color of the book, or the size of the font, or the size of the page. Uh, Overall, how the writing has been, or the paragraphs have been divided. So all this is going to prepare your mind what sort of a text you are going to deal with. Because I still remember that I used to be very reluctant to read some of the photocopies in our masters and MPhil, where we would be given some books whose font used to be under 8, even 6 or 7 font size. And whenever I would look at that font or that writing size, I would never want to read that book. And then what I would do, that I would go to the photocopier and ask him to do it macro. Macro means the larger size of the font. I would always go, you see. So even before reading it, I had the idea that this text I won't be able to understand because of its font size. So it does happen with us. So so before reading, when one has these headings or these whatever I told you earlier, we prepare our mind. So this preparation of mind, or this planning, or this setting a purpose, it is before reading stage. Now when you open, or you that document, or you open that article, or you open that book, and you sit down for reading, actually reading, then even during that process, the mind is working. And what is mind doing? uh, that you are you whatever you had set in the before reading stage, your mind you was prepared. Now you are focused. So the thoughts which earlier were somehow you were predicting, or you were guessing that what this article would be about, now this is the time uh, uh, to just focus your mind on the thought that is given in that reading material. So now you're focused. You are now connected with the text. Again, now this is called basically the communication with the writer. This time you see that the writer, whatever he or she has encoded or given a kind of a code over here, now you break that code. Breaking the code means understanding. This is called decoding. So you are now decoding the text. You are trying to unlock the text. So this unlocking process is called communication with the writer. Okay. And finally, when that article, or when that reading material which is in front of you, you finish reading it, again you see mind does not stop, or it does not finish its task. There is this remembering whatever you had read, it stays in your mind. Sometimes it happens that during reading we pause and then reflect. Reflect means then think whatever we have read. And in that process we may reread. Sometimes we don't understand the ideas, or we want more clarification. So what we do, that we pause, we finish reading, and then go back and reread. So this is the process of reading that goes on. And it is so automatic, you keep on doing it, you in your class, or in, and whenever you do the reading outside the class even, this process, it goes so spontaneously. And next time when you do that, you should monitor your own self, and you will find out that it happens. See? Right. Now we get to the types of reading. Since our connection, or our link, or our concern is the classroom, classroom in the sense that we are looking at the academic context, we are looking at our study, because the topic is study skills. So within study skills, how one has to read. So earlier we talked about the reading strategies, which were skimming and scanning. So this time we are looking at the broader categories or the broader types of reading which the student requires. So I'm not looking at the other people. I'm looking at you, means students. So how students they have to use these extensive and intensive reading. So first I'm going to look at extensive reading, which I have given the abbreviation as ER. So extensive, as the word tells us, that it means the broader, the overall, something which is at the general level. So any reading which is at the broader level and whose basic purpose is to have a general understanding of a text. It's a kind of something that we make an opinion about something by having gone through it generally, not focusing on each and every part of it. See, so that is called extensive reading. So it is very lengthy kind of a reading. Kindly focus yourself on the red colors, which when I'm going to read, you should focus on these. That this extensive reading, it occurs when students read large amounts of high interest material. Means that otherwise, why would you read it if it is not interesting? So if I give you on weekend a novel to read, or if I ask you to read your favorite drama in written form, or any speech that is in the written form done by some famous person, and you are interested in that, uh, so if such large chunks of reading material, if they are given for general understanding and you should have interest in them, then what will you do? That this kind of reading is mostly out of class, because within the class, as you see, that teachers have less time. They can't afford to keep you as silent throughout the process and say that, okay girls, read this and I'm just sitting in the corner. It does not happen in the classroom. We have focus time, we have limited kind of a text that we use, but this is something which is done out of the class. Just like I gave you the example that if on weekend I give you some novel to read or something, and I ask you to come back and just give us an overall idea what that novel was about, what that speech was about, or what that drama was about. So if that was the case, then it means that it is extensive reading. See, so in this kind of reading, one has to concentrate on meaning and read for taking gist. Gist means, again, the words like overall idea, main idea, gist, crux, general understanding. It is associated with extensive reading. And in this process, the last chunk of the red color, this group, and skipping unknown words. Here you are not concerned that what each and every word means. You just have to take a broader view of that reading material. Well, again, the word comprehension has come, because I told you that reading and comprehension, you cannot rule out these. They are, what I can say, that they are inseparable. So it is always done for the comprehension of main ideas, and somewhere it is like skimming. You see, I just can give you a connection with both of these. That in skimming and scanning, skimming is where one has to uh, go for the general idea, not for individual or focused words. Fine. It has to be more pleasurable, because without pleasure, without interest, without having any keenness in it, one is unable to go through such a large or such a long such a long piece of text. So it is considered as more pleasurable. So all these, most of the times, as you see that these readings of story kinds of things, and these things, they come under extensive reading. Sometimes I have seen that the students, as well as we, I mean anybody, sits down and takes a book and keep keeps reading for 4 or 5 hours, 3 hours, whatever one wants to. So in during this process, we do not look at the individual words, we do not look at the meaning of each and every expression which is given. So we keep reading and take an idea about that. So it is more pleasurable. The reason is that there are no tedious exercises. Tedious means that boring and dull kind of, which are you are not interested. So you don't have to come back and fill in something. Sometimes you see, I ask you to listen to my audio or video, watch video, and come back and do the quiz. Now, there wouldn't be any kind of such quiz, there wouldn't be any. So, extensive reading is just for the sake of general understanding as well as for information, and the broader ideas on the general level. And finally, this bullet tells us that its aim, the extensive reading, its aim is to build in reader confidence and enjoyment. So these two are the ultimate aim of extensive reading. So those people who do extensive reading, they are more confident. They are the ones who can talk about any topic, talk on any topic. They have a lot of information. They are the good speakers, because they keep on reading the books on various topics. See, so now it comes to intensive reading, as I have given the abbreviation IR, intensive reading. This intensive reading is more required within the class. I told you earlier that in extensive reading, it is usually out of the class. Out of the class means that you can be given a home task, or you yourself do it on the self-study basis or whatever. But this intensive reading, as the word tells us, that the term tells us, it means very focused. It has to be, one has to be very attentive. Intensive means that one has to be involved at each and everything that is in front of that person as a reading material. That's why it is called narrow reading also. Narrow means that one has to just focus on that particular point which is under discussion. See, again, let me give you an instance of that. That if we are studying communication skills in the classroom, and I ask you to focus on the trait of courtesy within those 7 C's, and now you won't look at the rest of the traits. You would focus on that one point that will tell you that what is courtesy, what is its role in communication skills, how should one use it, what are those expressions, whatever, everything related with the topic courtesy, the subtopic courtesy. So here you have to focus or narrow down your attention to one point, and you must know each and every expression, the word, the meaning related with this topic. All right. Naturally, if it is being focused on one point or one topic or one heading or something related with one thought, then one has to look at the discrete language items. Discrete means individual, special, individual, or single language items. I can also prove it if I give you a text and I ask you to underline all adjectives used in that text. All adjectives. So probably I'm teaching you adjectives, and I want to teach you where they are used, how they are used. So what is going to happen, that in my mind it will be that I have to teach you the use of adjectives, and when I give you a reading text, of course it has to be shorter. Otherwise you will lose your attention span. For keeping the attention span for such kind of reading, one needs to have shorter texts, not the extensive or the larger or the longer texts, you see. So through this text, the teacher would teach you discrete language items, mean special or individual specific language items. And these are the areas which are mostly taught through intensive reading. Sometimes we look at the grammatical forms. If you are given a text, like in the classroom it happens, in English language classroom most of the times these things are being done. Remember that if you have read the speech I Have a Dream, when you read it on your own, for the sake of just sitting at home and for your own interest, you will read it in a different way. But when you are going to be given it in the classroom where you will be tested, when in the paper it will come, it is part of the your part of your textbook, then your reading style would be different, your focus would be different. This time your teacher will require you to look at the metaphorical language that the writer has used, the grammatical uh, utterances which are there, or rhetorical use of the words, or similes, or metaphors, or whatever the language that was used in that speech. Your teacher will ask you to focus on that. So, in intensive reading, one focuses on grammatical forms, one focuses on the discourse markers. Okay, now what are discourse markers? This is usually the spoken form of language when it is written, or when somebody speaks and somebody asks you that I have already written the definition of it in front of you, that these are the words or phrases. For example, anyway, right, okay, as I say, to begin with. Now these are basically they act like a glue which binds together a piece of writing, making the different parts of the text stick together. And even in when we speak something, most of the times as a filler, when we are thinking about something else, we use the words like, I mean, um, again this or we say, I mean, see, we keep on saying these words in between. So these are basically discourse markers, or these are the fillers which actually bring the which connect our speech together like one piece. So this happens. It they are basically they fill our silence. We, instead of being silent, we use these, and it connects the whole speech or writing. Well, and the last thing that you are going to look at is in red color, that intensive reading. It asks you to focus at not only grammatical forms or discourse markers, but also on any other surface structure details. Surface structure means anything else. If I ask you to, if I give you any text and I ask you to focus on the way the words have been used. For example, if I say that just look at the three-letter words or the four-letter words, how many are these? So when you focus on these surface structures, or the surface things which are visible to you in the form of words, so it will be called as any surface structure details. There is one linguist or researcher whose name is Brown. He gives this example, or you can say this comparison of intensive reading with zoom lens strategy. He calls it zoom lens. I can give you an example. If there are many photos in one photo, in one photo, there are many people standing, but those many people would be the extensive reading. But you are interested in intensive reading, or you are interested in one that person who was your friend in the past. Now what would you do? We have this feature of zooming in our laptops, or in our cameras, or in our mobile phones. So what we do it that uh, we focus our attention to that one person, and we forget about the rest, and we zoom or we increase the size of that photo and bring it to the maximum in front of us, so that we should be able to look at that person with more detail, or with more attention over there. So this is what exactly happens in intensive reading. So rest of the things, they get blur, but one that topic under study, it comes in front of us in a magnified form, in a macro form, in a large form. So this is called intensive reading, and according to Brown, he calls it zoom lens strategy. Just quickly, I'm going to put the comparison of intensive reading with the extensive reading. You can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullets over here. And intensive reading, in a nutshell, it focuses on vocabulary and grammar, I mean, I told you that specific language items or specific surface structures, it is going to focus more on that. Of course, for that, word for word reading is going to be done so that you should not skip anything. There is no chances of skipping. So, inside the classroom, this is what we usually do. We do the intensive reading, then extensive reading. Of course, when we are doing word for word reading and also paying a lot of attention on grammar and vocabulary, our speed would be very slow. It requires intensive reading requires 100% understanding, not only of the words, their meanings, but overall everything is included. What sort of language has been used, what sort of grammatical structure has been used, what the writer's style is. So all this is going to be part of intensive reading. I told you earlier that for such kind of reading, one cannot use the longer text. So it means that it has to have limited reading. Shorter texts would be used for that. Difficult text means that, of course, something that you have to focus more and try to understand its meaning, structure. That is not that easy script which will be given to you, or text will be given to you. You have to explore it. For exploring, naturally, you need a difficult text so that there is margin of working on that. And of course, you do need dictionaries to look for the meaning or look for the usage of that word or expression. On the other hand, when we look at the extensive reading, it focuses on getting the main ideas and filling in the details. Again, main idea, general understanding. You don't have to be slow over here. It's not word for word reading. You have to be fluent reader. Rapid reading has to be done. Of course, your pace has to be fast, and because you don't have to focus on individual language items, it will be overall understanding. Since extensive reading means reading on the larger scale, so you have to read a lot. These texts are usually easy because you don't have to focus at each and every point. It does not hinder or it does not halt your speed because it's comparatively easier text, and you don't have to use dictionaries all the time. You have to ignore, either you have to ignore some those expressions that you don't understand, or you have to guess their meaning within the context, that how, what could be its meaning. So these are the this is how, in a nutshell, I have put intensive reading and extensive reading, what actually these are. And I have already told you that at this level, where you are, mostly you do the intensive reading. But you see what happens when you are going to go further into your academic life, when you are going to go for your MPhil things and your PhD things, that there people have to read so much. There are so many articles, so many books. Then you have to take the general idea from there. At your personal level, the extensive reading is done in the form of that novels that you read. There are different novels that you people read. So that is called the this is one of the examples of intensive sorry extensive reading. You do that, but in the academic context, in the future, the extensive reading will be in the form of many books or many articles that you would read for your thesis or for your studies. Well, this now intensive and extensive, it has finished over there. There is another topic in your course, and that is speed reading. As the name tells us, speed reading means the fast reading, rapid reading. How one can do and also understand it, it's difficult. You know, sometimes what happens that when we speed read, comprehension or understanding is compromised. You might not be able to comprehend the text. But this speed reading does not mean that you have to ignore understanding. No, the good readers, the fast readers, they have certain techniques. So I will tell you just one technique over here, which is important as far as speed reading is concerned. But first, what is this speed reading? It is any of several techniques used to improve one's ability to read quickly. All right, so it is very obvious what it means. Now, these two terms, which are in blue color, I have written and underlined, focus on this. That speed reading methods, they include chunking. I'll introduce this term, chunking. Now, this is one of the methods or techniques of speed reading, which minimizes subvocalization. Subvocalization and chunking, these are the two things what speed reading does. It asks you to do chunking, and it asks you to minimize or reduce subvocalization. So first, let me tell you what is subvocalization. Speed reading does what? It is the art of silencing subvocalization. Well, vocalization means speaking, and subvocalization means, it means that when one reads, sometimes you might have noticed that people, they read, it is as if they are speaking those words. They are reading the text, and then their voice, their low voice is also doing the same. So it means that when they read, they speak it as well. This speaking or subvocalization, actually it reduces the speed. It makes that reader have limited pace, or the limited number of words that person can utter. So speed reading discourages it. So when you do speed reading, which I will tell you how to be done, means chunking, how you do the chunking. When you do chunking, then it reduces subvocalization. Subvocalization, already told you, it means that when you speak while reading. So some people I have seen that if they are silently reading, then what happens? They seem to be whispering, as if they are also reading the words loudly. Not loudly, they are whispering. So this is called subvocalization. So it reduces the speed. Um, this The good readers, the fast readers, they have to discourage this subvocalization, and they have to group together the words and expressions, and then the reading plus comprehension, it becomes easier. This is just according to an estimate. Most readers, they have average reading speed, they have given you that it is 200 words per minute. If a reader has 200 words per minute, then it is considered to be an average reading speed. It is due to their inner voice, subvocalization, inner voice. It is due to their inner voice that paces through the text, which keeps them away from achieving higher reading speeds. So if you have 200 words per minute, then it is not an ideal or a good speed. It is average speed. So it is because of the inner voice or the subvocalization that stops you from taking the pace. For what to do with to overcome it? Now this is the technique. Now it is called chunking. Chunking, as the word tells us, chunk means a group of words. When we say that I have taken a chunk out of it, means a piece, or a group. See, so grouping of words in a sentence into short meaningful phrases, it is called chunking. Usually these are in the group of 3 or 5 words. So if we read like grouping of words in a sentence into, now this stops your speed. But when you chunk it or group it like this, grouping of words in a sentence into short meaningful phrases. See, I have made now the groups of this sentence. So this is going to increase my speed. So the chunking is one of the speed reading techniques. So due to which already I have told you that this process prevents word by word reading, which can cause lack of comprehension, since students forget the beginning of a sentence before they get to the end. It happens. So when our speed is very slow and we are doing individual words, reading of individual words, then by the time we reach the end, we forget what we had read in the beginning. So we have to increase our speed by chunking, by making a group of the words. And what should be our speed? If we are fast readers with understanding, then it should not be 200 words per minute. These should be 1000 plus words per minute. Too many, huh? No. When we do this technique, when we practice this, then our reading speed increases from 200 words to 1000 plus words. And of course, that's the silent reading, not the reading loudly. When you read aloud, of course, your speed it suffers. So for better understanding, one should do silent reading. Silent reading is the reading of intellectuals or the scholars, you see. And the good readers are the ones who read the text silently, try to grasp it, and this happens. See, so initially what you can do, that in order to have this skill in the beginning, one has to start small with 2-word chunk sizes and find out that as you increase, then 3, 4, and even higher. That is possible. These days, that it's the world of digital. It's a digital world, and then we have these different softwares here and there. So I have come across one of the softwares named as Spreed. It helps you to increase your speed. You can search it online, and then there are different tasks that it gives you, different exercises the software gives you, and there you can increase your reading speed. Those of you who are interested, they can check it. This is just an example of chunking. You can see that all the red lines, basically till that red line there is one chunk. So instead of reading it like to read efficiently, you would read to read efficiently. You have to engage your brain on what you are reading. You cannot read well if your mind wanders off to other things. See, now these are the groups that you have made within one long sentence, and now your reading speed would be improved. So this is just one of the things. Now I'm going to play one video, a shorter video on chunking. So, or on speed reading. Just watch it and you should pay attention to whatever the person says. Okay, before that, we have these two specific reading speed reading techniques, skimming and scanning. They are considered to be speed reading techniques because they also have a quick, you also have a quick look either at the overall meaning or on some words or expressions that are there. We have already introduced these, that they are the speed reading techniques. Well, now come to the video. Now this is here, I play it.
Is your bookshelf full of books that you have never read because you don't have the time? I'm going to show you how to speed read. Read all those books on your bookshelf faster than you ever thought possible. Check this out. The average person reads 200 to 250 words per minute. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to double, triple, or even quadruple that with these very simple steps. The first key to reading faster is number one, when you get the book, read the table of contents, read the review, read the chapter summaries. These are often the most important things that the author wants you to get from their text. So by reading these, your brain will be aware and looking for them as you read. Next, don't sub-vocalize. In other words, whenever you read, don't say the words to yourself. Don't read to yourself. Even if you're saying them very softly to yourself, the act of saying them is going to slow your reading speed down. Do not sub-vocalize the words. Some people will even chew gum to keep themselves from saying the words as they read because there's no other way that they can fight that. Studies also show that if you listen to music, especially classical music, when you read, it's going to improve your reading speed. I don't know why this is. Maybe because classical music relaxes your brain, but whatever the reason is, listening to music while you read, it has been shown to speed up your reading speed. So get some Mozart or Beethoven and read faster. This next step of forcing your eye to move across the page by using your finger or a pen is the most important part of speed reading. Whenever you see a sentence and the sentence says, "The boy ran to the store," most people will read that sentence this way: the boy ran, the boy ran to, the boy ran to the boy ran to the store. In other words, it's called visual regression. What your eye is doing is it's going back and it's reading all the words that you've read before. And it's doing it so fast that you don't even realize that you're doing it. And that is the biggest thing that slows you down when reading. It's the visual regression, your eye bouncing all over the page. So instead, whenever you read, take your finger or take a pen or a pencil or a marker or a highlighter and read with that and force your finger or force that pen across the page. That forcing the pen or your finger across the page and then force your eye to follow your finger. That alone should double your reading speed because your eye is not bouncing all around. The next key to speed reading is learning to see groups of words. For example, if you see the three words Statue of Liberty, you've seen it so many times and you know it goes together. Your eye is trained to see that phrase as a group, Statue of Liberty. You're not reading Statue of Liberty as individual words. If you can learn to do that and learn to see in groups of words as you read, it is going to speed up your reading speed. The next step to speed reading is to read the first sentence of each paragraph and read the last sentence of each paragraph, but kind of zoom through the middle. And here's why. The first sentence of each paragraph often tells you what it's going to be about, and then the last sentence of each paragraph sums it up. And if you read those two and then just kind of zoom through the middle, you will probably get the gist of that paragraph. And the final step to speed reading is go faster than you think is possible. When you're using your finger or that marker and you're pushing your eye across the page and forcing your eye to follow your finger, go faster than you think is possible. You will be amazed at how much you can remember and retain and the speeds that you can go at. But the important thing is to push yourself and go faster than you think is possible, and you will be reading faster than you ever thought before. One of the big
Right. So you have listened to and watched this a short video that I have incorporated in my presentation. This tells you about some of the techniques that you require for speed reading. I introduced you to the chunking, but here you see that there are 5 to 6 tips that this person has given you. While we come to the conclusion of this part, let me quickly go back to what was the purpose of this presentation. It was to introduce you to with the term reading. What are those components of reading? Then I also told you the process of reading. Then I came to these two important types of reading, in extensive and intensive, where we looked at the function, the purpose of these two types. And then finally, I discussed over here what is speed reading and how one can achieve it. And at the end of this presentation, I embedded one video, a short video, for you to understand what actually are the tips or the techniques for speed reading. I hope that it is going to serve the purpose for which I have made it. So I am thankful for you people that you have watched and listened to my video. Keep yourself tuned to the next part of study skills, which is going to be sooner in the coming week. So till now, it is going to be Allah Hafiz from my side. Stay blessed.